Hello, everyone. This is the PRF fund reporting for R8C session by Healthcare Business Specialists on November 29th, 2022. Here is the team at Healthcare Business Specialists. My name is Mark Lynn. I'm a CPA from Chattanooga. Here's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. Danny Gilbert is my partner, and here is Danny's contact information if you need to get a hold of her. Paige Chambers has come on board with us, and she'll be working on emergency preparedness and preparing cost reports with us during this cost report season and going forward. So there is Paige's contact information if you need to get a hold of her. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, we have about 4,000 members in the group. It's a great place to find out information about rural health clinics, to ask questions, and all of our webinars, seminars, and even other people's seminars and information we're going to put on there if it relates to rural health clinics. Also, we'll put any types of new information that Medicare or Medicaid, if it's appropriate, we'll put that on there as well. We do have another webinar coming up on cost reporting, some year-end deadlines, some things that you need to do before the end of the year, sort of like what this one is today for PRF fund reporting. We're going to have one on cost reporting, and it's going to be really important this year because the Medicare caps have increased so much that you really do need to have you have to be proactive in order to maximize your rate. Otherwise, you're going to be leaving money on the table. So it's going to be extremely important that you listen to that and hopefully implement some of the things that we will suggest to you. As far as today's session goes, this is going to be about provider relief fund reporting. Period 4 is upon us. We sort of got a little reprieve in period 3 because 99% of the people that we work with did not receive $10,000 or more in PRF funding. And we just basically had to open up the portal, change our password, and tell them we didn't get that amount of more than 10,000, and we were done with it. It probably took us 5 or 10 minutes to do that. Period 4 is going to be a little different in that there were the majority. If you applied for phase 3, phase 4, or received ARP funds, then most of you would have received more than 10,000. So there's going to be some work to do. And if you want to follow along on the slide presentations, I did put this in your handouts there, so you can pull that up as a PDF of it. It's also on our website at ruralhealthclinic.com. If you look under webinars, the slides will be there, and it is in your Facebook group as well. So the R8C Information Exchange Facebook group, we have it in 3 different places for you. So here are the key dates that you want to think about. This is something from HRSA. Period 4 is what we're going to be reporting on. What you want to do is look back from July 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 and see what monies you received from provider relief funds during that period of time, and that is what you're going to be reporting on. If you didn't do period 3, completely forgot about it, there was a way for you to report late. It's that late reporting period ends on 12/2/22, so just in a few days, but you had to request permission to submit it late, and that deadline has already passed. So at this point, if you didn't request for permission to submit it late, there's nothing you can do. If you did request permission to submit it late, remember it has to be done by 12/2 for you to submit it. That's as long as the portal will be open for you to do that. Now, as far as reporting period 4, that will open up January 1, 2023. I would recommend trying to get into it as soon as possible. That way you can see what's in that portal and the type of information they're gonna ask for. And our deadline, our drop dead deadline, is 3/31/23 that we will have to have these reports done. We do work with about 45, 50 clients that we do the PRF fund reporting for them. What we would like to do is get your information in by the end of February to complete these reports, because Paige and I will be working on these reports. It's also going to be hitting us during cost report season, so it's going to be an extremely busy time of year. I'll put together a work plan for you guys, and I see a question mark there. Let's see here. Unable to download handout. Yeah, sometimes the downloads on here do not always work. I don't know. I think GoToWebinar hates me.
I'll email it to Deb.
You'll email it to them? Okay, if y'all will email that to them, that would be great. Let me see. Okay, period 4 PRF fund reporting work plan. Determine if you have any unspent or unused period 4 funds. So this is going to be really important that you look at this. If you receive any of that money during that period 4 time, where was period 4? This is what happens when you get old. You forget things very quickly. Period 4, July 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. That's the period of time you want to look for any received funds. If you got any big checks in your bank account that you didn't know about, you need to figure out what they are, and hopefully they'll be PRF funds or ARP funds. And if they are, then you're going to need to figure out, number one, how much money you got. Number two, what I would do is go back and look at your previous PRF fund reports, because a lot of you guys have lost revenues in there, and those lost revenues, you don't have to spend this money by writing checks or paying bonuses or all the sort of or spending money. You can count it towards lost revenues. And so what you want to do is figure out how much lost revenues you have. Also, we're going to be adding a couple quarters of information, the first 2 quarters in 2022. So you want to take the net patient receipts for those 2 quarters and compare that to the first 2 quarters in 2019 and see if there's any lost revenues for that period of time. And you can add that to the lost revenues from the previous filed cost reports as well. Okay, and so after you've done that, determine the amount of unspent, unused PRF funds minus your available lost revenues. So let's just say you received $400,000 of PRF funds and ARP funds, and you only had $200,000 worth of lost revenue. You're going to have to write checks for 200 grand by the end of 2022, or you're going to lose that money. So that's why this is ASAP. You need to get on this right away to see if you need to come up with some type of bonus plan to bonus out any money for hazard pay to your employees, or if you can find other uses for this money that's related to COVID. You'll want to spend that money before the end of the year. And so here they go. Step 4, spend, distribute monies computed in step 3 by December 31st. This is your drop dead deadline to write a check, cash the check. Don't write the check and not cash it. I've seen people want to do that before. No, you have to cash the check. And then once you get that done, the portal is going to open up on 1/1/23, and excuse me. I'm catching a cold too. Everybody's catching flu and cold. I don't think I'm catching it too. Review the PRF portal to determine the information that is needed. If you want to go ahead and get a jump start on that, HRSA has provided us with an Excel spreadsheet that's got all the quarters that you need in it. So if you click here, you would be able to download this Excel spreadsheet. And I'm going to show you some sheets from it just in the next slide. But go ahead and start accumulating your metrics, your quarterly revenues, and try to put that together. And again, I put 2/15/23. If you can get that stuff, if we're doing it for you, try to get it done by then, and then we will try to get it reported by 3/31/23 as well. If we're not doing it for you, just remember that is the key date for you guys to remember to report this, or like I said, they're going to take your money away from you. This is the hard one too. Let's see here, Danny, do we have any other? Are you including COVID mitigation money in this? No, we're not. So that's a different tranche, and we'll get to the tranches here in a little bit, Glenda. But that's a good question. Here is the money. Here is net revenue, sort of net cash collections for 2022 and 2023. This is what you're going to be comparing to 2019 as well. So you'll want to you want to start working on this schedule as well, because it does take some time going back through your collections and figuring out what's from Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C, Medicaid, commercial insurance, self-pay. What you'll want to do is tie this into your bank account on how much net patient receivables, net patient collections that you received for these quarters. So that's going to be important that you get working on that as soon as possible. And then this is not quite as important. These are the metrics. So this doesn't have any money effect, but it's basically your number of full-time employees by quarter is what they're looking at. So you should really only have to be filling out Q1 and Q2, because most of this has already been filled out in previous reporting into the portal. So Q1 2022 and Q2 of 2022, you'll have to do that. On these patient metrics here, what you'll be using is outpatient visits. You're a rural health clinic, you're not going to have inpatient admissions or emergency department visits, but you will have outpatient visits. So you want to break that down by quarter and put that in there as well. Okay, here is just an example of year-end planning of what you're looking for. So determine how much PRF funds you have in each account and from which tranche. Tranche is a fancy word that the government uses for the different buckets of money they give to you. You should only use the PRF funds, and you should only have PRF and RHC COVID testing and mitigation funds left at this point. So, and then the PRF funds is what we're actually going to be reporting on. The RHC COVID testing and mitigation, that $100,000 that you received from that the NARHC administers, you may have that money. That's reported in rhccovidreporting.com. That is a different pool of money. You're not going to be putting that money with your PRF and your ARP funds as well. Okay, so first off, here's an example of what we're going to do. We're going to look at our lost revenue. We're going to go back and look at our period 2 or period 3 report. And in this case here, this is an example one I just looked up last week. We had 474,300 of total lost revenues. We used 108,515 of it through period 3. That left us with $365,785 of lost revenue. And I believe this client had maybe $270,000 worth of money that came in during period 4. So they really didn't have to write any checks whatsoever for these funds. So that was good news for them. They can basically use the $270-something thousand they got any way they want to at this point. So that's great. What they did with it, the lost revenue counted for this, so they don't have to worry about paying it back. They don't have to write a check. They don't have to do anything. Do remember that your PRF funds, and if you got these in 2021, you should have paid taxes on those. If you do figure out that you do have to write a check and maybe pay bonuses to people, write those checks early enough in December to where your FICA taxes get included in there as well, because those FICA taxes do count as an allowable use of these funds. Also, remember too that increased tax liability, if you receive any of these PRF funds, maybe you didn't get phase 3 or phase 4 when you should have back in period 4, but you actually received them in either period 5 or 6, which would have been in 2022. That is going to be, you're going to have to pay taxes on that for 2022. So it's going to be included in that. So you may want to try to use some of those funds to pay bonuses and try to get some expenses into this year. Also, it's going to help you on your cost report too, because the Medicare caps have increased dramatically. And the more expense we can put in there, the more money we're going to be getting from Medicare, because the cap. So they're going to go up to $190 a visit by the year 2028. So you'll want to try to get as much expenses as you can, not only for PRF fund uses, but also for cost reporting purposes as well. And the increased tax liability, again, that will be a good use for your PRF funds. Doesn't have to be any cost report, but it does help you on that. So here are the rules that they issued the new rules in October 27th. This is about a 15-page document where the rules are laid out for us. And it talks about here, we're in period 4. Here's where we're getting this information that we've been telling you. July 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2021 is our payment period that we're looking for, and we have to spend this money by December 31st, 2022. And then here is our reporting time period, which it shows here, period 4, March 31st, 2023 is when we have to have all these funds accounted for and entered through the portal. There's some more information that that HRSA has provided for us about distributions, return policies. We're not going to read all this. They do have a really good support line. If you run into issues, I've run into issues on getting in. Maybe you have a lost password. Maybe you know, they do use 2-factor authentication now. So maybe you have an issue with that. But the provider support line is really, really good. So if you need that, that is a real good way to get in and get some help. When you do go into the portal right now, I went into it the other day just to see what it looked like. You're really going to get, this is what it's going to tell you. The reporting period for 3 is already closed. Can't do anything with it. And you can go into period 4, January 1, 2023, when it would open up as well. And then there was the request for a late report, which that time frame has already passed us. So that's what the portal looks like. Again, it's going to have 2-factor authentication. You should have a contact person, and we set ourselves up as contact person. That's somebody that's where the email or the text is going to go to. So that person needs to be available so that you can actually get into the portal by putting that code in. So that's going to be important that you do that. And then here's what the portal will look like right now. Basically, it has the active reports and inactive reports. And when you pull down, when I look at the inactive reports, basically period 1, period 2, and period 3. And this one here, we actually did file the report on time. It says it's in progress, not submitted. They had less than $10,000 of monies for this 3rd period, which is why most of yours will look like this, because most of you guys didn't receive any PRF funds during period 3. So don't be surprised if you see something like this and you think something was wrong. No, I went and double checked, and that was submitted on time. It's just the way the stupid report reads. And then when you do go back and look at your period 2 or period 3 reports for looking for your lost revenues, this is the document. This is what the document that you should look for. The financial summary of payments received July 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. This was actually period 2. Because during period 3, we didn't have to fill out this report because we got less than $10,000 worth of money. We actually got 0. So I went back to period 2, looked at it, and in this case here, we had total lost revenues of $103,000, and then unused lost revenues were $70,000. We actually had PRF funds for this period was $21,000. So we used all of our lost revenues towards the $21,000 that we received. And so now we have unused lost revenues of $70,010. So that we can, getting sick. So we can use that money going forward as our lost revenues for this period of time. So that's what you want to do. It's one of the first steps you want to take. And then here is just a summary of what I've already told you before. This is they sort of made a pretty graphic for us to do that. Here are the three tranches. Glenda was talking about the mitigation funds. First off, there's three different tranches of money that you could have received during this period of time. Number one is HRSA. They did a grant. Let's see, this is the R8C COVID-19 testing and mitigation program. This is the $100,000 that you got, and then this is the link where you're going to report that money. What will happen is you need to spend that by December 31st, 2022 as well. So if you've got any of that money left, you want to go in and spend it at COVID-19 testing and mitigation. You will have to do a closeout report on that. That will be due in January of 2023. So make sure that you're doing that. Now, they're not requiring you to put specific amounts to anything or send them in invoices, but what you'll want to do is keep your invoices. I would keep it in a expandable folder of anything that you use for that 100,000 and put it there. And then on the website, it's just going to ask you general uses. What did you do with the money? Did you use it to pay hazard pay? Did you use it to buy COVID testing kits? Did you use it to hire extra personnel to go out and test for COVID with patients? Whatever you did, you'll want to check that box, but you're not going to be required to break it down by specific numbers. But do keep that information for the next 3 to 5 years. Because they may come back and audit it. And then this is the one this is called the Rural Health Clinic Vaccine Confidence Grant. That was the $49,500 that every RHC got that applied for that grant. Elizabeth Burrows, the lawyer from Indiana that works with us on grants and if QHC matters, she is the one that probably helped most of you get that. And there's some reporting that you have to do for that. She talks about the PMS system. So I think it gives a lot of us PMS. But talk to Elizabeth related to that if there's anything you need to do regarding that. And Elizabeth is very helpful. Even if you didn't use Elizabeth, she's extremely helpful and will help you. And then finally, this is the provider relief funds, which is what we're talking about today. Phase 4 was paid during this period of time, and then the American Rescue Plan. So those were in the third and fourth quarter of 2021. You guys, numbers are all over the place. I've seen people get as little as $20,000. I've seen one client got $903,000, and it's a really small clinic, and they're just like, I have no idea how they came up with 903,000, but they were paid that much. So those are the three tranches of money that are out there. The National Association of Rural Health Clinics put together a great summary of the different tranches of money, and then that's where the rhccovidreporting.com website is. If you want to go see this on the NARHC website, you can find that here. And then what is an allowable expense? Basically anything that helps you to prevent, prepare for, or respond to coronavirus. So it's super broad on what they say is an allowable expense. And I just copied these FAQs from the HRSA website. So that one's there. What about if you want to do capital facilities? You can use it, and it can pay for the full capital expenditure for that. But here's the catch: in order for the capital facility project to be expensed, the project must be fully completed by the period of availability, which means you're going to have this done by 12/31/2022 if you're doing any type of building or capital project. So retrofitting your COVID-19. So if you've got one of these capital projects going on, it's time to get with your contractor and say, hey, we need to get this done by the end of the year, or we're going to run into some issues with the allowability of these funds. Let me see here. If you need to purchase items, but maybe they're on back order, we got supply chain issues, we got inflation issues, we got COVID issues in China, all the things that are going on. If you do get your order in, I would go ahead and pay for that order, even though the equipment or whatever is not received on time. then that does count as an allowable expense as well. So sort of talking out of both back ordered personal protective equipment and capital equipment, that will be considered an eligible expense. They sort of give you two different answers there, don't they? But that was straight from their FAQ as well. Here is some of the information that they've added during October 27th about things that you can do to use these funds. So you'll probably want to read this as well to see if that's something that you guys can do to help you with that. And then the biggest way that we've considered using funds is paying our personnel. We've had I've had a lot of providers or doctors, nurse practitioners have passed away from COVID. A lot of our office managers, we've lost a few of those. We've lost several of the spouses of the office managers have passed away from COVID when people took it home to them. So the hazard pay of dealing with a deadly infectious disease is real, and it's hard to keep people in healthcare nowadays. Nowadays people get paid $15–20 an hour for working at McDonald's, and you don't have to worry quite so much about as many patients with COVID running into your office every day when you're there. So that is something that you can do, and if you can get this stuff paid by the end of the year, that will be great. I think, to me, that's the best use of these funds, is retention bonuses, hazard pay, those types of things for your patients. That's for your employees. That is the way to spend that money. Here is the 90 pages of this document. Here is your provider relief funds. If you click here, this gives you about 90 pages of FAQs, and they have another FAQ section where they've sort of broke it down by categories, which is a little bit easier to find things. This is when I've been making copies of these things here. This is where I've been getting these FAQs, is when I click in right here for these general FAQs. But they're pretty easy to find. I think it has a section on expenses, and that's really what I drilled down to, was the expenses section of it. And then cost report treatment. This has been good news for all of our cost report preparers. We do not have to exclude the cost of these grants on the cost report. So we're going to report your full cost on the cost report. Here is the FAQ that says that it's allowable for us to do that. So that's worked out great for us on the cost report. What about going the other way? But what if we reimburse for something on the cost report? Can we include it on the PRF funds? And the answer is no. However, it gives you an out to say that if the cost wasn't fully reimbursed, maybe there's a cap. Just like rural health plans, we have a cap of $113 per visit this year. I was just reviewed a cost report where the cost per visit was $148. Well, the difference between 148 and 113, we weren't fully reimbursed for that cost. Also, Medicaid in that state only paid $87 a visit, and our cost was 130 something. So we have a lot of unreimbursed costs in there. So the vast majority of the clinics that we work with, this will not be an issue for you. And what we do is we do the PRF fund report, is I'll go through and report. I do a calculation of how many Medicare visits, how many Medicaid visits, and how many commercial visits, and what our expected payment was, and compare that to what our reimbursed cost was. And I create what's called, I call it the cushion, where this is the maximum amount of monies that we were not reimbursed through the PRF funds, and we put that in our work papers when we do one. And I've never seen anybody have an issue with this in the past. But it's sort of scary when you read this. You're like, oh, if I put it on the cost report, does that mean I don't get my PRF funds as an allowable expense? The answer is no. You will be able to get that on your cost report 99% of the time. Okay, quick executive summary here, because we covered a lot of information in the 30 minutes that I've been talking to you guys. So let's go ahead and here's what you need to do. Number one is figure out how much lost revenue you have to carry over, because that's a check you don't have to write before the end of the year. And then once you figure that out, and if you do have funds that you need to spend by 2022, then you'll want to spend those funds by December 31st as well. And of course, you're going to report that by March 31st, 2023. Another tranche of money is that 100 grand that you received from the NARH, from HRSA, and the NARHC administers it. You'll want to make sure that you do that and do the closeout procedures for those January 2023. And then finally, the vaccine confidence grants. Just check with Elizabeth, make sure there's nothing you guys need to do on that, or I think you may have already missed the deadline for the reporting on that. So unless I think there's some type of extension that you can get, a no cash extension or something like that. So you'll want to take a look at that and make sure that you handle that. Okay, questions and answers. That only took 30 minutes, which is good. Let me see here. If you want to type in your questions, you can do that. Or if you want us to open up your line, raise your hand and we will do that. Let me see here. Okay. Questions. Danny, can you make those questions?
There aren't any.
There's not any. Oh wow, I must have done a really great job. If you want to us open up your line, you can raise your hand and we'll look for that and we'll open up your line and you can ask us questions. Okay, Deborah, she's got her hand raised. Okay. Okay, hey Deborah, your line is now open. You're self-muted if you want to ask a question.
Sure. My question, we had to apply for the last 2 bundles of funds that we got, and we had to basically pre-report most of the stuff they've been making us do as post-reports for the other PRF funds. And I'm curious to know why they're going to have us report again when we had to give them all the documentation and the numbers before they even sent us any money. So I just think that was that just feels odd. So what happened to all that data we sent them in October when we applied to get the PRF funds in the first place?
That is over my pay grade. I don't know. I don't know why they're making you double work. I can't see them comparing, what you sent them before to what you're reporting now. I don't think they have that much in resources to do that. So I don't know. You stumped me on that one.
Okay, well, we will do our due diligence and do our reporting and all that kind of stuff. We've been tracking all kinds of things, but I just feel like it should be easier this time because we already gave them all that documentation before.
Yeah, it was funny when they first reported this. I remember when the secretary, she said, no strings attached. And there'd been a lot of strings attached to this money, let me tell you. So, okay. All right. Well, thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate you. Okay. Let's see here. Yep.
Denise asked if we'll be able to get a copy of the slides. I'm not sure. You may have already mentioned this. Are they on the website already, or will they be?
They're already on the website, and the session is being recorded. So if anybody wants to listen to this dribble later on, they can do that. But it's on the website. It's in the handouts over here, which doesn't really work apparently, and it is in the Facebook group as well. So we put them in 3 different places, and I will send out, I just sort of ran out of time today because we had a couple of webinars and meetings today. I will shoot everybody an email with the links to it after it's over. So if you registered, you will get them. Okay. All right. Any other hands up? Oh, there we go. Jennifer's got her hands up. All right. Okay, Jennifer, your line is open.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm like how many others that have been in line with a contractor and waiting on supplies for some remodel that is actually still not done a year later on a lab project to do. It is supposed to start next Saturday or Friday, Saturday, but I'm not sure if it'll get done. I already told my contractor I told him he was basically going to be paid by the end of the year. Is that, I don't know what else to do. I mean, I don't know that it'll get finished and have everything. I've paid for a lot of the cabinetry, but I mean, the final bill, I mean, it might not be done until after the first of the year.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on some supplies.
Yeah, but I mean, the good, I would try to make sure you paid them as
Okay.
much as you can, even though, maybe it's not completely perfect, and they have to come back in a day or two, because that happens any type of construction. So I would just like use this to put some pressure on them to get it done by the
Okay.
end of the year.
Well, and it's a supply, and actually I've used the same contractor on buildings for years. So I'm not concerned about paying and not getting it done. I just wanted to be sure that it's okay that I actually pay. When you said about cashing a check, I mean, I'm not so sure. Do you mean any check that I send out in December should be cashed?
No, I was thinking about some people will write a check to themselves and then they'll like, okay, I'm not going to cash this for like 6 months later. That's the
Okay.
thing I was trying to
Okay.
do. If you're sending it
Okay.
to a vendor, if you're sending it to us and we cash it, you send it in, late December and we cash it in January, that's not a big deal at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right, Jennifer, you take care. Thank you. Okay.
Mark,
Yes,
you got another one. It says if we received less than, I can't count how many zeros, 10,000 in PRF phase 4 from lost revenue, excluding the 100,000 RHC mitigation money, are we excluded from reporting?
Yes, if you have less, it's the same rule as before, is if you get less than 10,000, and they word it sort of funny, they say 10,000 or more, so I'm not sure if they mean 10,000. If you got 10,000 exactly, you wouldn't have to report, or if it's, 9,999. But yeah, let's just say if you got less than 10,000, you're not going to have to report on this. Now you have to go in the portal and do a couple little things, but that's all you'll have to do. It'll be just like period 3 reporting is what it'll be. Okay. Other question, Danny? Do you have any more?
No, that's it so far.
Okay, and let's see, Jennifer. We already talked to Jennifer. Do you see any more hands up?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for what you do. We'll be back on Thursday with another webinar on just trying to figure out how to get the cost reports done and try to maximize your expenses for this year for cost reporting purposes as well, because it's going to be a little different, these cost reports, because the caps are so high. So thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate your spending time with us today, and we will see you. We'll see you on Thursday, I hope. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Danny, Paige.